Welcome to Smeester's Corner. I'm Adam Smeester, otherwise known as Mr. Smeester. Today's topic is courage. Everybody could use a little bit more courage. So we're going to talk about what prevents us from taking action and having courage. And then we're going to discuss ways in which you can have a little bit more courage, steps that you can take. All right? So, first of all, let's define courage. What is courage? Courage is defined as taking action in the face of pain, fear, or grief. Notice there's a key word in there, taking action. We tend to associate taking action with strength, and we tend to associate courage with strength. If you have that, you will be more powerful in your life. So let's talk about this. First of all, why don't people take action sometimes? Well, because of fear. So how do you know when to take action? It's a good question. That's what people wrestle with. But there's one thought that will keep you from taking action. This thought is called effective forecasting. So effective forecasting is when you make a prediction based on how you think you will feel if you did this action. Notice that there's a key word in there again, feel. It's how you think you're going to feel. People don't like to feel bad, so they tend to try to avoid that. So I'm going to give you some examples of effective forecasting. Say you're dating somebody and it's not going real well. You don't really like them as much now. You just don't see it going anywhere, and you kind of get that gut feeling like it's over, but you're still dating. But you stay with them because you think to yourself, well, I couldn't handle not being with this person. I couldn't handle being alone. That's effective forecasting. You're predicting how you think you're going to feel. Here's some other examples. Maybe you don't apply for a certain job because you think if I applied and I got rejected, how would I feel? Okay, because what does that say about you? Here's another example. Asking a person out. Some people won't ask out people that they want to ask out because they feel like if they get rejected, how is that going to make them feel? What would that say about them? Well, maybe that would say that they're kind of a loser or something like that, so they just don't do it. Here's some other examples. These are the try-fail examples. So some people won't try something because they feel like if they put everything they had into it, and they failed, then what does that say about them? They're scared of that feeling about what that says about them. So they would just rather not try and fail than try and fail. So you see this a lot with students, if they're working on it, studying for a test, if they're working on a project, if they're working on an essay, and then they just determine, you know what, I don't know if I'm any good at this. I'm just not going to try anymore because I would rather not try and fail than put all I have into this and try and fail. You see this a lot with people applying for jobs. So sometimes people won't apply for jobs because they think, well, what if I tried this? What if I really give it my all and then I don't get it? What would that say about me? Relationships, people won't ask out other people because they feel like, well, if I did ask them out and they rejected me, then how would I feel? And then that ruined the friendship, and they're scared of how that might make them feel. Some people do this when it comes to vulnerability, so they won't be vulnerable with other people that they should. They don't have the conversations, the frank conversations that they need to have with somebody, because what if that person takes your vulnerability and they kind of throw it back in on you and they kind of reject it? Okay, how would that make you feel? Maybe it's moving for a person or a job, or maybe moving for school. Maybe you got accepted to a college and you need to move, and maybe you're the first person in your family to go to college, so there's a lot of pressure on you. And if you failed out of college and you had to come back home, you would feel disgraced. So maybe you don't go to college to begin with. Something like that. Those are all examples of effective forecasting because you're determining how you think you're going to feel, and that helps you make your decision. Also, what can factor into that is the lack of power. So sometimes that try and fail, if they fail, that tells them that they don't have any power in the situation, and people are scared of not having any power. So if there's a situation or an outcome in which a person doesn't feel like they have any power, they may shy away from that situation. Well, what's the problem with all of that? Why can't people effective forecast? Because that might save you some heartache and grief. Well, that tends to lead to regret. Well, what's the problem with regret? Well, here's the problem with regret. If you're doing a lot of effective forecasting, you're probably not taking many risks. You're probably not doing much with yourself and your goals or life. And people that do that end up having a lot of regrets. And when you have a lot of regrets, you live in the past because there's nothing to be happy about in the present or the future because you don't know what your goals are. So a lot of people tend to live in the past, and you see that a lot. The best example I can give is a lot of guys do this with sports. So I've talked to a lot of guys and they'll kind of live in the past about high school. Oh, high school was so great. I was an all-American. I made this team and that team. And I could have gone to college if I really wanted to. This team was recruiting me. That team was recruiting me. I could have gone D1 if I worked a little harder, or whatever their excuse is. But they always have an excuse, and they always talk about the past. They're never talking about right now, because there's nothing really going on right now, because they're not taking any risks. And because they don't take any risks, there's nothing to be had in the future. So they're not talking about that either. They've done studies on this. They've asked people who are about to die what their biggest regret is. So they'll go to people in hospice care, in hospitals, who are diagnosed with a terminal illness, and hospice care kind of makes them feel comfortable with the time that they have remaining. And they'll ask them, like, what's your biggest regret? And you'd be surprised. The number one regret isn't the things that they did that they failed at. Their number one regret was not doing something. It was all the things that they didn't do. The things that they had potential for, but they didn't do. The things that they had a dream for, but they didn't do. The things that they wanted to do, but they never did. So here are these people on their deathbed, and they're looking back at life, and some of them have a lot of regret, and you don't want that to be you. You don't want to be the person that says, oh, I wish I would have done this, and I would have done that, and I wish I could do it over again. You want to be the person who looks back on your life and says, yeah, I did it. Sometimes I failed, sometimes I didn't, but I did it, and I'm proud of myself. That's the person that you want to be. So, how do you have more courage? There are 3 steps to take to have more courage. The first step is you need to ask yourself, what are the ways in which I don't take action? Here are some examples. Maybe you don't speak up in class. You would like to, but you just don't. You don't raise your hand, you don't participate, you always get zeros on class conversations. You wish you could be like that person who shares everything, and you think, I have good thoughts, I wish I could have the courage to share them. Maybe that's you don't take action there. Maybe you want to ask somebody out, but you don't take any action. Maybe you're not happy with your job, but you don't take any action. Maybe you're not happy in your relationship, but you don't take any action. Maybe you need to be a little bit more vulnerable in your relationships, your friendships and romantic relationships. And you know you need to have some conversations with people, but it's really hard for you and you feel kind of stupid or silly, so you don't take any action. Maybe it's that you just don't try in school. Maybe that's the action that you don't take. So that's the first step, identifying what actions you don't take that you wish you could. The second thing that you need to identify is why. If there are a couple of these things that you don't take action at, why? What are you scared of? Is it power? Are you scared that you're not going to have any power in the situation? Is it because of something that happened to you earlier in life, like a traumatic situation? Okay, maybe you need to get some help for that. Maybe you need to see a school counselor, or maybe they refer you to somebody. What will also help you out with that is acknowledging that life isn't fair, life is tough, and you can't live life by shoulds. And what I mean by that is you can't live your life and say, well, I'm not going to deal with that because I shouldn't have to. How can you do the things that you want to do if you're not going to get over what's in front of you right now? The third step to having more courage is to take some steps. Now, here's what's going to help you take some steps towards action. First, you have to identify that you would like to take a step. So just saying to yourself, you know what, when it comes to that situation, I think I want to take a step. And then you tell yourself, all right, and when I take a step, it's going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to have to stretch myself to do it. You need to tell yourself that. Then you might need to ask yourself some questions. One question you might want to ask yourself is not what do I do next? Who do I need to become to get this done? Maybe there's a little bit of transformation that needs to happen. Another question you could ask yourself is, if I was stronger than I think I am, what would I do? Or another way to think about that is, if I had more courage, what would I do? And I asked myself just this the other day. So there was something I needed to do. It was causing me a lot of stress. I lost some sleep over it. It was causing me some anxiety, but I just sat down and I asked myself, if I had more courage than I do right now, what would I do? And I would like to do something. And it's going to be uncomfortable. I need to stretch myself. But what would that be? That might help lead you to take some steps. Another thing that you can do is, if there's someone that you value, that you think is courageous, you can ask yourself, what would so-and-so do? The last thing that you can do is get a mentor. So instead of taking steps to do something, maybe you can get a mentor to help you determine what steps you need to take. I've done this, all right? So there was a time in my life when I was dating my now current wife and we were getting pretty serious and a decision needed to be made. Either take the next step or you got to get out of it. taking the next step means getting engaged. I didn't know what to do. I knew I didn't want to leave her because she was really valuable to me and I knew there was something special about her, but I didn't know what to do because it didn't seem like the relationship was going anywhere. And in my personal life, I didn't know if I should stay with my job or if I should take this other job. I didn't know what to do. And it felt like if I took a step in either direction on anything, it would be a giant leap. So I was kind of frozen. So I asked a friend who had a mentor what he thought of his mentor. He said he was a good mentor. I asked him if he could ask his mentor if maybe I could talk to him. He said, sure. I texted him. I showed up to his house, didn't really know him, but we got to know each other a little bit, and then we got to talking about my issues. I saw him for 1 hour every Saturday morning. I went over to his house, and it lasted for about 2 months, and we figured everything out, and now everything's great. So, when it comes to making decisions, don't ask yourself how you think you might feel about the decision that you're going to make. A better question might be to ask yourself, if I was stronger than I think I am, or if I had more courage than I think I do, what would I do in this situation? I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.